Welcome to the Origin of the Maker Podcast. I am Will, your host. Today, my second guest is Guest-Coregeek Creations. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, man? I'm doing fine. I'm happy to be on the second episode.
Yeah. Well, this is the Origin Maker Podcast where we talk to makers of all kinds. Doesn't matter if you're a prop maker, blacksmith, you make blankets, or whatever. We'll talk to you.
Cross stitchers? Are you gonna have a cross stitcher on here? And just
Yeah, well, maybe it depends on who wants to come on.
Yeah. Quilters.
Yeah.
They all make good stuff too, right?
Yeah. My grandma quilted, and we had blankets from her. It's like,
yeah, mine did too. She's a little too old to do it now, but we have plenty of quilts in my house. They're beautiful, amazing quilts. So yeah, I come from a long line of makers, I guess, when I really think about it. So
yeah, I think everybody really does. No matter if you're a maker or not, at some point in your lineage there was somebody who made something or did something that was considered making. So it all works.
Yeah, I think that's probably true for a lot of people, whether they realize it or not.
Well, man, if you guys don't know, Eric Coregeek, he has his own podcast. It's a Craftingeek Podcast, am I correct?
Yeah, Craftingeek. I'm a co-host with Jackie Craft, who you may know as Ruth from the sci-fi TV show Cosplay Melee. But she goes by Jackie Craft on the internet and whatever. Yeah. But yeah, we have it's kind of also a maker focused, but maybe a little more towards cosplay prop making, because we're both cosplayers and prop makers. Yeah. And we talk a lot about making stuff. We bring on as many friends as we can for interview shows. We've had Kamui Cosplay, Kamui and Benny. We've had Evil Ted Smith. We've had Bill and Britt from Punished Props. We've had Liz Brickley. Just a lot of really cool makers that are friends of ours, and just bring them on and talk to them about making, kind of similar to what you're doing, but a little bit different. So, when you said you were going to do your podcast, I was like, sweet! I can't wait for another maker podcast, because I love listening to people talk about how they got started and excuse me, and what kind of drives them as a maker and things like that. So, and when you asked me to be on, I was like, yeah, I totally want to do that.
Yeah. Well, so there are several maker podcasts. You got yours, Craftingeek. There's Bill and Britt's is their live show, which they put out as a podcast, and there's Still Untested, the Adam Savage Project from Tested. Yeah, that's a good one, and there's a few other ones out there. But I figured if I'm going to do a maker podcast, I should probably stand out a little bit, and then just a general maker podcast, because everybody's got their origin story, and everybody it's like superheroes have their origin stories, and some people who don't make stuff, who really think they can't make it, but they like following people who do make stuff, is like, that guy's a superhero, what's his origin story?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I really like the idea behind it all, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, in fact, I actually considered doing a similar one for a long time before I decided to do Craftingeek with Jackie, because I just decided that I wanted to do something more with somebody else and not be like the center of the podcast, Yeah. So I applaud you for taking on, because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy, It's
it's just, you got to be charismatic, and I try to be as charismatic as possible without sounding too much like an idiot. So
no, your first episode was great. I really enjoyed, and I know Bjorn personally. We don't live even that far away from each other, and we see each other a lot of cons and stuff. And first time maybe not interesting story, but the first time I met him was because you guys were talking about his origin and his leather work, and that awesome dragon costume, like his first full armor build that he made out of leather. And the first time I met him was at, I think it was PAX. It might have been Emerald City, one of those, because they all happen in the same place in Seattle, so I kind of forget what's what. But he came up to me after a panel that I did, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm Bjorn, and I made this." And I was like, "Dude, that's awesome."
Yeah,
and it was like, "Why you should be on this panel? You've already done more work than I've ever done."
yeah, Bjorn's a cool guy. It was really fun talking to him. Because he's got an interest in leather making, which I've done leather making in the past and probably still will do more in the future. But
yeah, and at the level he's doing it at, I mean, there's not many people doing it at that level, So
yeah, because I was thinking, I got Evil Ted lined up to do an episode at some point, and I got J Cosplay in line to do an episode in the future.
Yeah,
and a few other people. But I was on. I popped into. Drawn a blank. She's making a Lagatha costume from Vikings. It's
Parker's.
Yeah, Parker's Quench. I popped in her stream the other day, and it was like, "How'd your interview go with Bjorn?" I was like, "Cool. I'm interviewing Coregeek next." She's like, "Oh, you're interviewing all my neighbors."
yeah. We all kind of live. There's like, it's interesting in Seattle because there's a group of makers that, like, a lot of them live more on the southern end. Yeah. Like Bill and Britt, they live like down in the Tukwila, Renton area, and then there's a lot of makers that live down there. My friend Brian from Zach Labs and stuff are kind of on the south end, and the group from Causing a Problem podcast, they're also on that area. But there's a few of us up on the northern end, which is where I live, and yeah. Yep. So there's that group of us, which is kind of nice because it seems like everybody else is down south. So.
Yeah, it seems like the Pacific Northwest is the place to be if you're a maker.
Yeah, apparently. We have, there's a good group of people here, a lot of really talented, skilled people, and it's a great community to be a part of in this area. And, we all see each other at cons and just really try to build up each other as much as possible. I've never really felt like it's a competition, which is great because it's just, I feel like that there's a group that's willing to just kind of, it's like when one of us succeeds, all of us succeed. And that's like my favorite thing, especially about the con stuff. So
yeah, cause I was telling Bjorn in the first episode, cause we've got cons out here in Indy, we got like a few big ones around the area, but the community of makers, unless you're like really in with the people at the community around here, it's good, but not as close-knit as you guys up there, because you guys are all friends, you all hang out. The makers that I know down here, every once in a while we may hang out, but it's more or less, we're all busy.
Yeah, well, that's kind of true for us too, I mean, there are more like get-together kind of things. A good example is like Zach Labs. He does like an open workshop like every month, which is really cool. And I've been there. I've been able to do it like once, But he opens his shop. He's got a nice big shop, all kinds of tools. They tries to get as many people from the community in there that have experience. So people that don't have experience, or even people that do that want to learn some new stuff, can come in and work together. And that's a pretty cool thing. But like for me myself, I actually don't get out very much beyond working in my shop and doing my day job, because prop making for me is not my full-time job. So I have a day job and a family, and then my second job, which is the prop making side of it, which is not an easy task to like manage all those things at once. So
yeah, I'm the same. I got a full-time job. I got a wife and son, and if I get a chance to pop into the shop and work on something, I will. Yeah. But other than that, it's like, well, crap. There's so much other stuff that I have to do.
And it's time. It's very, very, very time consuming. I think that's one of the things that. Oh, excuse me. I don't. Did that come out?
Are you eating hot dogs over there, bourbon up hot dogs?
It's my second cup of coffee this morning. So.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was saying now. But yeah, it's playing that juggle is it's not an easy thing whatsoever. So everything okay?
Yeah, hold on one second. Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, it's all good.
Interruptions happen.
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, because that's one of those things I was considering. Making. I've got a limited amount of time to make stuff when I do. Now, the other thing is like it's another reason why I kind of want to get a 3D printer, because maybe eventually I'll learn how to 3D model. But if there's something I want, it's probably chances that there's already a model online. I can just go download for free, print it out, and finish it up that way. Then put it on my shelf and look at it.
Yeah, which is still a ton of work, but not necessarily as much work, because you can sleep and do your day job, and your little robot can build things for you.
Yeah.
So and that's
all you have to do is just filling and sanding, which is I think one of your favorite things to do.
No, that's the thing. No. Okay, so I have this reputation, right? And it's false. I'm putting it out there right now.
Yeah.
It's not that I like to do it. I like the results of it.
Yeah, because I know.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because Bill is always joking the fact that you're always over there sanding some of his stuff for him.
Yeah, that's the running joke between Evil Ted, Bill from Punish Props, and Steven from SKS Props, the three. Oh, and Gary Beer Money Props. So all my buddies, they like to hassle me about my sanding. So that's kind of like the running joke, right? And it's not that I love that work. I tolerate it, and if I get into a groove, it's almost kind of cathartic in a way,
Yeah.
Because I just put on some music or a podcast or something, and you just kind of go, and you're just like in this robot mode. But for me, it's like one of the ways I feel like a lot of my work is like maybe separated from just a lot of the other builders out there, is I'm willing to take the time to do that, and really a lot of props can come out beautiful, even more than you would think, if you're willing to put the time into the finish, and a lot of people, they're willing to get to a certain point and then they just stop. They're like, it's good enough. And for me, I learned quickly that I wasn't okay with just good enough. And that's fine if other people want to be just good enough. I mean, that's fine. I mean, it's not that there's, one is better than the other. It's just for me, for the things that I want to produce, it's like, for me, just good enough wasn't enough. I learned quickly that I had to kind of go beyond that just a little more, and take that extra time. And for whatever reason, I have that type of personality that, my drive is that way. I mean, people call it perfectionism or whatever. For me, it's just for me, it's a standard. And it's like the standard of what I want to do is I want it to be this certain way. And a lot of times that comes down to a lot of tedious sanding. So I get a lot of crap for it, but they're just all jealous because my stuff looks better than them.
Well, yeah, I think you're all.
And that's just a joke, people. Don't take that seriously. I am just teasing.
Well, if there's anything I learned from watching you, Bill, Steve from SKS Props, I think you all got that standards like, well, I'm gonna do as great as I can, but Harrison just still makes it look better.
Yeah, that guy, he's a robot.
Yeah. I popped in a couple of his streams. I follow him on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. It's like, Jesus Christ. He's just it's like, okay, I'm going to make this little statue. I'm going to polish it to a mirror finish. Then, I'm just going to matrix mold it. And it's just
no big deal.
Yeah.
No big deal. I've been molding and casting for like 3 years now. I mean, I'm fairly, I haven't like been doing this stuff for like 20 years or something, and he's going on like maybe, I think he's into it at least 8 or 9 or 10 years or something. And it's like, I haven't even done a matrix mold yet.
Neither have I. I just, it's like,
it's just like, I look at it and it's like, yeah, the results is cool, but it's like double the amount of time. And for me, it's usually just like, for what I save.
Just do a brush on mold.
Yeah, brush on. Or I tend to default to box molds because that's just what I'm comfortable with at this point. And,
yeah, I've done a couple brush on molds. Like I've done some dump molds, but like, I do I'm the kind of person who like when I get into something, I'll research the hell out of it. Because I know how to do a matrix mold. I know how to do it step by step.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, same for me. It's like I know how to do it. I considered doing one for my most recent build was the Sword of Athena from Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's Wonder Woman Sword of Athena, not from the movie Wonder Woman, because in Wonder Woman she has God Killer. But
Yeah.
just to clear that up. But she uses Sword of Athena in Batman versus Superman and upcoming Justice League. So anyway, I considered doing a matrix mold for that, but it's just like it was more of a time limit thing, and I just came down to, you know what, I'm just going to default to what I know how to do, and I know that it'll work, because I don't want to monkey around with this thing and have it not work. Because by the time I started producing sellable copies of it, I just had like a literal army of Wonder Women like beating down my door. We want your sword.
Yeah, that is like Because I follow you on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, and I watched your progress of that sword. It's like, Jesus, that's nice. And like, that's all cold. You cold cast all those now, right?
Well, so the way that I ended up deciding how to sell this thing was, I knew I was going to do resin casts of it. I don't particularly want to completely finish something like 50 or 100 times or something, because that's a ton of work, and it's really, really, really annoying,
Oh yeah.
So from the outset, I knew I wanted to sell some fully finished versions of it, but I also knew that I was going to sell what I call kits, which is basically just the resin piece. You have to clean it up, but there's like, my mold is like super sweet clean, and really nice. There's just like clean up the seam lines just a tad, and you can go straight into painting, really. And so what I ended up deciding to do was I knew I wanted to put some fully finished ones out there that were cold cast, but I didn't want to sell the cold cast as blanks. So I just set a limit. It's like, okay, I'm willing to make 10 of these fully finished. And so I set a limit for that. I never really told people that, but I was just like, I put the finish yourself version on Etsy, kind of in batches. So those are easy for me to do because it's just a 2-part mold. It doesn't take that long to cast them. And then in the meantime, if people are like, hey, will you do a fully finished one of this? I'll be like, yeah, I have 10 slots open. I'm at slot number, I think I'm at like slot 7 now. I think I still have 3 more that I'm willing to do.
Nice.
So, so that's how I ended up doing it. It's because I wanted some of the cold casts out there, but I wanted it to be a finished version. So if you want a cold cast version, you have to buy the full meal deal. Otherwise the other version is just a straight resin version that you have to paint yourself. So that's how I ended up doing it, to where I was comfortable with it and not. And even at number 7, because I actually was working on it before we started podcasting today, and I'm already even at number 7, I'm like, I really hate this sword.
Well, the great thing about cold casting is there's really, really no real finish work. All you gotta do is just take some steel wool to it, and it buffs up.
Yeah, that's true, but there's still, because of the way the sword is, it's like I still have to hand paint the handle, because really the only thing that's cold cast on it is the blade.
Yeah.
And then the cross guard and the handle, which has all this intricate designs on it, I still have to hand paint all of the handle and stuff. On the cold cast for the blade, there's all these really intricate runes, so I have to wash those with black first. It's just there's a process to it. So, and it takes me about. To do one from cast to finish, it takes about 2 days. So of working on and off of it, because you have to kind of paint and wait and that kind of thing. But so there's a bit of labor in there. It's not as easy as it seems like it should be. But so yeah, that's going.
I just need like 1 second.
Yeah.
I just realized something, but
yeah,
just keep talking about your sword.
What's that?
Just keep talking about your sword. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
Not a problem. So here we are. Yeah. I'm supposed to just entertain you guys on my own. So yeah. You guys, if you know me or follow me, you're probably tired of hearing about my sword, because that's really the only thing I've done for the past month or 3 months or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Because with your molds and your cold casting and stuff. Because like I said, I've done a few brush on molds, and the one I've done really two real brush on molds because I've done a bunch of little dump molds because I don't do a whole lot of molding casting,
Yeah.
which I should do so I can get better at. Because I've got a movie commission that I had where I made a wolf mask, so I sculpted it on top of a fiberglass cast of the actor's head, and I just sculpted the wolf thing on top of that. Then I did a brush mold on that, so that way I have basically two molds in one big mold.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't have to worry about it cutting everything out. Then I got this dragon priest mask mold that I made a long time ago.
Nice.
But I was like, man, all that finished work to mold and cast it when I can just make it out of foam and it's just as good.
Yeah. Well, molding casting it does take quite a bit of time. So
Yeah, because it does.
yeah, it because I'm like the same way. It's like I can bust stuff out pretty quickly in foam if I need to. I've just found that the more things I build, the more I want to kind of push the types of techniques that I use and try to, it's kind of like just want to try new things. And it's like with the Wonder Woman sword, it was more of like, can I make this and can I do it, by hand, by sculpting?
Yeah.
Don't even know if that's the best way to do it. Most people were like, why don't you 3D print it, or why don't you, laser cut it or whatever? And it's like, because I want the challenge. For me, a lot of times building stuff is just about kind of the challenge of, I look at this thing, can I recreate it in whatever I think I need to recreate it in? That's gonna, push my skill and be something that I can be proud of in the end. So,
Yeah.
and really the Wonder Woman sword was the most kind of hand sculpting I've ever done. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and people seem to really like it. So
Yeah, it turned out like it's fantastic looking. It's phenomenal. It was in I remember correctly because Frank Ippolito,
Yeah.
maker down in
yeah.
Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
But didn't he like he I think it was like he asked you how you made it and you told him and he's like was God-smacked about it and he's like, why didn't you?
Well, it was funny because and this is interesting because I look at it now and I'm thinking about it and it's like I started that sword a year ago. I mean, I had to take a break, a really long break to do some costume building stuff for my family. So it's like,
Yeah.
It wasn't like I worked on it that whole time, but it was almost a year ago. I was at Dragon Con and I was having breakfast with Frank and Gary and some other people that work for him. And we were talking about some of my work and stuff. And I showed him the raw sculpt of the one side of the blade. And he's like, wow, that's nice. He's like, you hand sculpted that? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, why didn't you just 3D print it or laser cut it? And I'm like, I don't have those things. So I have these two hands. I'm like, Frank, I have these two hands.
It was like, these are my 3D printers.
Yeah, it was funny and he just kind of shook his head, like you're crazy or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like, I wasn't, I'm not really quite sure I think he was impressed with it, I hope, but
Well, yeah.
at the same time, I think he was just kind of like, you're nuts.
Well, if whoever's listening, if you don't know who Frank Ippolito is, do yourself a favor, go to tested.com or go to Tested on YouTube, or just type in Frank Ippolito Tested and watch all of his videos. He's got some crazy stuff that he does. Crazy.
Yeah, and he's his company is called Thingergy, so it's like energy with thing on the front of it, and they're on Instagram now, I believe, and Facebook. So, and lately, one of the things that they've been working on is they've been doing a lot of prop work for the new TV show, The Orville. So, so a lot of the stuff on The Orville has been made by his shop.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. To kind of retrack, trying to do like a half-assed segue. But we were talking about molding and casting. I actually went to go help my friend who's a prop maker out here. He wanted some help doing a live cast for a client of his. And he's like, I need help doing a brush on mold for a head cast. And we got all the stuff to do it. Because he watched the tutorial, I think it was Joel did on live casting, that he like did commentary over Bill doing the live casting or something like that. I think that was it. But we were just sitting there doing it, and it was like, man, it's kind of hot out here. And it's like, sitting there thinking, like, I know this isn't really going to work out well because it's really hot outside, but if we work fast, it should work. And it was like, I probably should have talked him into like, hey, we should probably move this to inside to a more controlled area, because as soon as we got the stuff mixed up and we got it like started going down, like started on his face, it just like that, it
just kicked instantly.
Just kicked, and so it's like, oh my god.
No.
So he's like, okay. It's like, all right, man, this isn't gonna work. Well, you got a really cool like mutated burnt prosthetic now for this guy if you want to paint it up. But he's like, okay, we're gonna go get some alginate. We'll do it that way. That will work. And I was like, yeah, that will work. He bought the wrong type of alginate. It's for the dunk alginate you stick your hand in or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we can't hold him upside down to hold his head in there because he'll drown. I was like, okay. I was like, this is what we're gonna do. I know this really, really cheap, effective technique to do live casting that doesn't take as much work, which uses plaster strips. You just do basic words, a basic mother mold on the actor with plaster strips on 2 parts. Then you take those off, you lay in fiberglass with the resin, you pull them out, and ta-da, you got a fiberglass live cast you can work off of. But so he was making a helmet from Destiny. He sculpted all of it in hand out of monster clay, and he did a brush on mold and mother mold and all that stuff. And he was I was basically coaching him through text the entire time, because he always texts me. He's like, hey, how do you do this, or how to I'm doing it this way but it's not working out, what can I do to make it work better? And it's like then I'll figure something out, because now he calls me his prop daddy, because I'm his go-to guy. But
it's good to have somebody on speed dial like that, you know. It's
yeah.
Like, can you get me out of this mess, because this is what I did.
But I told him because I told him, like, when I started the podcast, I was like, hey man, let's do a podcast. You be my first guest. We'll just chill out, drink some beer, and talk shop and stuff for a little bit, and tell me how you became a maker. But then he's like, I'm busy. And I was like, here, try some other people. He's like, I'm busy. And I was like, then I got Bjorn on. But I told him that I was interviewing you next for episode 2, and his text just was blatant fanboyism just spewing out of my phone. He's like, you're interviewing Eric Corgeek? I was like, yeah. It's like, oh my god. He's like, because he's like, man, I was like, I told him I would tell you this, because you are on his list of his 9 divines of prop makers.
Oh wow, I didn't even know such thing existed.
Neither did I. But I was like, calm down, go check your pants, calm down.
Well, what's his name?
His name's Freddie. He's Iron Grizzly Props.
Shout out to Freddie. Is he on Instagram?
Yes, he is. He's
Iron Grizzly, huh? Okay. Yeah, I gotta look him up real quick.
If it doesn't pull up, I'll pull it up. But he's a cool little kid. He's 20, 21, 22, somewhere around there. But he sent me his list, and I gotta read this off, because it's pretty much everybody that I want to interview at some point. Yeah. And it's I'll show you, because nobody's gonna be able to see this but you. But on the phone it says 9 divines of props and costumes, and he's got a list of people, and he's got you circled down there. It's
a little blown out. I can't quite see it.
Sorry. Well, because it starts off, his number 1 for props and costumes is Adam Savage, which is a lot of people's number 1.
It's like, yeah, I totally agree. High five.
Yeah, Bill Durant of Punish Props, Frank Ippolito, Evil Ted, Harrison Cricks from Vulcan Props, Kamui Cosplay, Stephen K. Smith from SKS Props, Guest-Coregeek Creations, and Zon Zombie.
That's awesome. All amazing people, and every one of them except for Adam and Harrison, I can say, are all friends of mine. So,
yeah.
Because I know Harrison, but we've never met, and we obviously have a lot of friends in common and stuff. And same thing with Adam. I don't think Adam knows who I am though. So,
well, he might, because he knows Frank, and Frank has done some stuff with you and Gary from Beer Money Props, and Vulpin, so he may know who you are.
Yeah, well, I kind of think he does because so one of my Wonder Woman swords went to Norm Chan, okay?
Yeah.
And if you know Tested, Norm is basically Adam's right-hand man for Tested. And I know Norm well enough to say that I know that Norm knows who I am, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're not like super tight or anything, but we see each other at cons. We're friends on Facebook, you know. We text each other every once in a while.
Yeah, you're acquaintances, more or less.
And I know that sword, which Norm actually used, and this was just like, this was really great for me. He used it as it was his present to his wife for their first anniversary.
Nice.
You know, and it's just like for people that you respect to have them use something as like a gift of love to somebody that they love and are married to. That was just like, that meant a lot to me. And I know that my sword went to wherever they based the operations of Tested at. Went to there. And because the
San
UPS
Francisco,
ship,
I think, right?
Yeah, the UPS ship notification had A Savage on the shipping notice, which I saved, you know. So I don't know if Adam was around when they picked it up or if it's been seen by him. I'm assuming that at some point it's going to end up in his hands.
Yeah, because if
it hasn't already.
Yeah, if you sent Norm a sword, I'm pretty sure he showed Adam. It's just like he's not gonna get this amazing prop and not show Adam Savage.
Well, that's what I kind of figure, you know. But you know, I can't say for sure, but so in my mind, my prop has been in his hands. So which by the way was really just kind of freaking me out a little bit because I had all kinds of issues with some paint during the summer and stuff, and it was just like I barely got those because of that. Instead of being like done a week early, I barely got the sword done in time, and it was like the last day it could be shipped out. The shipping had to, you know, there had to be 0 issues with shipping. Ended up shipping it like 2 days to get there in time to make Norm's anniversary, and it all worked out great. And Norm took some lovely pictures of it with his wife Danica holding it. But the pressure was freaking me out a little bit.
just make another one, make a really nice cold cast one, send it to Norm and say, please give this to Adam.
I really should.
Yeah, because I tweeted because I follow Adam on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. Like, because if you're not following Adam Savage, you should. Because he's the host of the host of Mythbusters for years. Yeah. Amazing show. Does a ton of amazing prop and costume work on Tested. And because I know one of his things is because one of my favorite things is the Blade Runner blaster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and, I mean, I don't know why it is, but who isn't? You know, if you do props, it's like everybody loves that gun.
Yeah, because in the game Fallout New Vegas, there is a gun called That Gun. It closely resembles the Blade Runner blaster, and I made that gun.
Awesome.
Because there's a toy company, excuse me, a cheap little toy company made like a little replica, kind of resembled it. So I went and bought it. I cut it all apart. I added stuff to it, and I did some sculpting in Bondo, and I painted it all up, and it looked almost exactly like that gun. And I tweeted it at Adam. I was like, hey, check out this Blade Runner style gun I made. And he retweeted it, and it got some likes and stuff. And it's like, cool, he saw it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've actually had Adam like retweet a couple things that I've tagged him on, you know. But I just kind of figure that happens to him so much that remembering, because like for me, right, it's like I'm a very, very, very small, like, as far as people knowing who I am. Yeah. But even just the amount of people that know who I am that talk to me, and then they'll be like, yeah, we met like whenever, and I'll be like,
oh, I don't remember, but okay.
Yeah, because, and so, you know, and that's just like a real, and I'm not like saying I'm a huge celebrity or anything like that. I'm just, but because of the community we're in, some people know who I am, you know?
Yeah.
And
you're going to get that.
Even just that is like such a small amount, and keeping people in my head straight and knowing who they are and everything is almost impossible. And that's like at such a minuscule scale, you know. And Adam has literally millions of people that follow him and love him, you know. And so it's just like, standing out in that crowd, pretty difficult. So
yeah, that's one thing I'd like to talk to him about if I ever get him on here, if I am lucky enough, is I like want to pick his brain about the Blade Runner blaster, because I've seen his coverage on Tested about it. I know what it's made out of, and I have a full set of 3D printed files for the Blade Runner blaster, because since I actually recently went and saw Blade Runner 2049, which was a phenomenal film. I'm kind of upset that it's not getting the coverage that it should.
I absolutely agree. I have to throw that out there. I freaking love that movie, and I have to kind of bracket that with, I was so pissed when I heard it was going to get made, because I was like, why would you do this? What,
because the first one was really good.
The first one is like in my top 5 of all time movies, and it has been ever since I saw it. I think I first saw it when I was like in my early 20s, which I'm in my mid 40s now, so it's been a few years.
Yeah, I saw Blade Runner going on probably about 5 or 6 years ago, probably 7, 8 years ago, something like that. Just if I can remember it properly. In the past 10 years, I've seen Blade Runner a couple times. When they're like, I heard they were making another one. I was like, heard that Harrison Ford was going to be, and I was like, okay. Blade Runner is such a specific type of film. Yeah. And they had Ridley Scott as like a producer, I believe. And I was like, he's not going to let it get too screwed up. And the director they had was a good director. And I went and saw it. And there's an IMAX theater down where I live, and I went and saw that, and I was like, I don't really need to see an IMAX. I'm going to go to regular. Get in there. Yeah. It's like, ooh, reclining seats with buttons that you can lean back, and it's like, got my Coke, got my popcorn. I've got Blade Runner, and then man, that movie threw me for a loop. Every time I thought that I kind of figured out what was going on, turn around, I was like, no, it's not the happened. It's like then towards the end of the film, I'm like, oh my god.
I just have to throw it there, because actually I've been wanting to do a whole podcast just on the movie. But so when I heard they were making it, was like, please God, no. and the reason why was because I just figured that, one, I haven't been at all impressed with any Ridley Scott film in probably the last 15 years. Even though he's this amazing filmmaker, and I really feel like Blade Runner in some ways is like one of the most, it has problems, and it's not a perfect film, but for the type of film that it is, it's like sci-fi noir. It's like within that group of films, it's like a perfect film, in my mind.
Yeah.
And so when I heard sequel or reboot, I was just like, no, please don't do this. And for the most part, I'm okay with reboots and sequels and stuff, because the first film always stands. But for that film, it's been such a love of mine that it's like, I just don't want them to monkey with this world, and mostly because I was afraid it was going to turn into a big budget action movie, and the original is not an action movie. It's a very specific type of movie that has a very specific type of plot and very specific type of motion, of timing, and it takes its time. And it's maybe a little confusing. Some people think the original was boring. I was just mesmerized by the movie from the day one that I saw it. It's one I watch maybe once or twice a year ever since 20 years ago I saw it or whatever. Yeah. And so I was really afraid of a sequel, but then they announced that Denis Villeneuve, or however you say his last name, because he's French Canadian, was going to be the director. And my absolute favorite film from last year was Arrival, which was his film. And that film had a very specific timing to it, and it took its time. And as soon as I heard he was on board to do Blade Runner, I kind of was like, okay, I think this guy can pull it off, because Arrival is it takes its time. It takes its time to tell a story, and so once I heard that, I was like, okay, my guess is he's not going to turn it into some big action spectacular, No, and they did.
And it did. It was for what the film was, because I haven't heard of that director before Blade Runner, and I didn't see Arrival, but I heard it was really good. And then when I heard that he directed it, I was like, I heard that was a really good movie, because I don't go out and watch movies very often.
Gotcha.
I usually wait 5-6 years till they pop on Netflix and watch them.
I'm a huge movie guy. It's like that's like my thing. If I'm not building stuff, I'm usually watching movies or going to the theater. It's like one of my favorite things to do with my daughters is we catch movies together, you know. So
yeah, but for what Blade Runner 2049 was, it was a phenomenal film. It was very visually stunning, and they did a phenomenal job. And I've seen mixed reviews online, but then again, is like, well, you probably haven't seen the original, or you really didn't understand the original.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the thing that really you have to kind of have a precursor to is like, have you seen the original? Do you kind of understand the point of the original, which isn't this action movie. It's a movie about what it means to be human. I mean, really, that's what the movies are about, you know. And it asks all these kind of philosophical questions. And the original really was for the time, a big budget art house movie, and that's why it failed miserably at the box office when it first came out. Also because they monkeyed with it and did some stupid, you know, voiceover and all that kind of stuff, and they just kind of muddled with the movie.
But for a sci-fi noir movie, it's still a great movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But there's people that didn't like it from the beginning, and they still haven't liked it, and that's fine. That's why there's thousands of movies out there. Not everybody has to like the same movie. Movies are like people. Not everybody likes the same person, you know.
Yeah.
And that's okay, you know. But for me, it's a movie that's always just been close to my heart, and the 2049 for me, it couldn't have been any better. They couldn't have done anything better as a sequel, and I'm at the point where now I'm glad they made it, and I can't wait to see it again.
Yeah, I need to go see it again.
Yeah, I definitely want to catch it again in the theater at least one time. If you have, and I have to throw that out there, if you haven't seen it and you're like, I want to see this movie, go see it in the theater in like the best theater you can, because it's one of those films that it rises above just kind of being a film, and it's more of an experiential kind of thing because of the sound and the music, and you just have to kind of experience it on this big, huge screen with an amazing sound system and just kind of get lost in it. Yeah. And you can't do that at home on a 60-inch TV. It's just not the same.
One of the things that really stood out for me sound wise, because I was in the theater and I was like, oh my god, it feels like my brain's going to explode because how amazing this sounds, because it kept a lot of the same audio spectrum of the first movie of how the background noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of cues there. There's a lot of cues there. Yeah.
And they did a really good job of not mimicking it exactly, but it's had those subtle cues of audio for the background noise and tracks, and it's like, oh, that's so good.
And I feel like the whole movie's that way. I feel like they stayed really away from all of like the little fanboy fan service things of like, hey, remember this from the first movie? Remember this from the first movie? Remember this from the first movie?
Exactly.
You know, and it's like there's all these little things that connect it, but they're not like blue milk. You know, that's like my favorite thing now is like the blue milk scene in Rogue One. It's like, really? Did you? You know, it's like there's no blue milk scenes in 2049.
No.
You know. And I love the subtlety of it, and the pacing of it, and the story it tells, and the acting is phenomenal. There's not one bad performance in the whole thing, and I just love it to pieces, and it's just a gorgeous film.
It is.
So Roger Deakins, the director of photography, is a god of cinematography, probably one of the best living cinematographers out there, and you know, it's just like that. Visually, it just drips with mood. It just like the first one.
Yeah.
Just, you know, but without totally aping the first one, which is I love. I felt like they found this perfect line where it's just like it calls back, but it doesn't just like completely feed you the fan service, and tells a story that you have to think about. You know, which is what for that type of movie, which is what I want to see.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And because I don't want to sound like I'm like down on big budget action movies or something, because I love those too.
Yeah.
But they're different types of movies, and I love different types of movies, you know.
Yeah, everybody should. Well, before
anyway, this turned into the Blade Runner podcast.
Yeah, well,
instead of the origin.
Yeah, before this turns into a full Blade Runner podcast, because that's something I would love to do. As I will go rewatch.
I've been dying to talk about it with somebody, you know, because my daughters and I have talked about it, but we've had all the same conversations already, and like at my job, nobody's seen it. You know, they're like, oh, why would I want to see that? I never even liked the original. I'm just like, really?
Well, Because I'm gonna go see it again, and I know you will. If you want to do a podcast dedicated to Blade Runner, we will do a podcast dedicated to Blade Runner.
Yeah, we should do it. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Get 2 or 3 of us together and just geek out.
Yeah.
But like I said before, this turns into the full Blade Runner podcast.
Yeah.
This is the origin of the Maker Podcast.
Let's bring it back down to.
What our original plan is, because we've chit chatted for a while. A little longer than expected, because I probably should have waited to bring up Blade Runner until later.
Well, you had no idea that I was going to jump on that so quickly.
No, it's all good. It's podcasts will evolve however podcasts will evolve.
I like that. I like the kind of the free form, having a conversation.
Yeah,
so
it's because I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, the JRE Experience, and because since he's got such a broad spectrum of guests, it's always good. But you are a maker, you're a family man like me. You have a family, full-time job. You don't get a lot of time in making like I do, but I've been following you for a while. All your stuff is really good. What got you into making in the first place? What was your initial kick in the arse to get you to make stuff?
Well, I guess I would have to ask the question of, are you talking specifically like props and cosplay making, or just kind of making in general?
Just making in general, because since making has such a wide spectrum of things that consider making.
So if you look in general, you kind of have to go back like to my childhood, really. When I was growing up, my dad and my grandfather and my uncle were all general contractors, and they did house builds and more remodeling than like full brand new houses. Back in and I'm talking when I was a kid, it was like the early 80s, because I'm kind of an old guy. So and I just grew up around that. I grew up around, it's like when they weren't building, when my dad, my family wasn't building stuff for other people, my dad was building a house for my family. We lived in a small single wide trailer on some property out in the middle of nowhere in Eastern Washington. And my dad was basically building my mom's dream house, and that took about 4 or 5 years, of him making a house for us to live in. Beautiful house. It was an amazing place to grow up. And so I grew up around, carpenters basically. And even from the time I is old enough to know, he taught me how to, hammer a nail, and how to use a skill saw, and how to use a table saw. And, and so as I was growing up and the house was being built, I helped him in building that house, and I just, for whatever reason, I just have always been always from day one been fascinated with the way things work. And one of my earliest memories of in my childhood, I got this. So this is way long ago. So back in the analog days, there was like this really cool Batman toy, and it had like this tower. It's kind of hard to explain, but it had like this tower, and then like this balancing rod that came off the tower, and then there was like this little Batman helicopter, right? And you could control it. You could control it with a little wired remote, and basically all you could do was make the helicopter go up and down, and and fly in a circle, because it's literally connected to a rod around a circular base, right?
Yeah.
And it had like these little cutout figures of like the Joker and the characters from the comic, and they had holes in them, and the Batman helicopter had a little hook on it, and you could fly it around, and you could dive it down and like pick up the bad guys, right? and I loved that thing. But I only had it for like I got it for my birthday, and I only had it for like a week, and I had to know like how it worked, right? It's just like so what did I do? And I don't remember how old I was. I might have been like 10 or something, maybe even younger than that, and it's like, hey, here's all these all these screw heads. I should probably just tear this thing apart and see how it works. Not, I mean, I had no idea what I was going to find. So I did that, and I couldn't put it back together. and my parents were like, "What are you doing, kid? We thought you liked this thing." And they just didn't realize that I liked it. I loved it so much. I had to like figure it out. I had to understand like the mechanics of it and how things were put together, and how this whole thing worked. And that's just kind of the way my brain has always been. It's like, no matter what the thing is, it's like there's a part of me that wants to know the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like for me, it's like the behind the scenes or how things are put together has always just been super intriguing to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like, it's like, even now when I get something, it's like, look at it for a couple seconds, give it a good turn around. It's like, I think I could take this apart, put it back together. Let's see if I can do that. And I usually, there's maybe a 5% chance that I don't put it back together.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like, oh, let's try again.
Yeah. Or you get it back together and there's like 2 parts left over and it still works and you're like,
hope these weren't important, because I've had that.
And then as I got older, I kind of got more into, when I went to high school, we actually had metal shop and wood shop and things like that were still a thing. And it's like, I took every shop class that I could. I even, like, my senior year, I had like a couple, just like periods that I didn't have anything to do. It's like, I talked to my wood shop teacher into letting me do like an independent study and, like, for the class, just like build something, build some piece of furniture in wood shop is like my senior project or whatever. And like I built a rocking horse, which was pretty cool. And I saved and like gave it to my daughter years later on her 2nd birthday. And I've just always kind of built things, My mom used to joke, she still does, kind of like, for whatever reason, when I was really young, it was cardboard and tape. It's just like those were my go-to. Because as a kid, it's like it's sturdy and it's easy to cut for the most part, and you can tape it together. And I was always just like building stuff out of cardboard and tape. And I wish I had some of those things. I don't have any of them anymore. They all got thrown away, I'm sure. But I just remember it's like if I was really into Star Wars, because I it's like I'm old. I'm at the age where I remember seeing the original in the theater and all 3 of them in the theater, and I was like a super huge Star Wars junkie, because that just fed my imagination. And my family was fairly poor. I had a few of the action figures, but I couldn't like have the vehicles because they were just too expensive. And so it's like I remember building like a skiff, for Return of the Jedi, and I even built a Millennium Falcon once. I'm sure it was total kid crap, but I built it and I used it. And
but as a kid, it's like that's something that could be like, this is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And so cardboard and tape, and one was like, she could never keep a roll of tape around the house because if it was there, it was getting used, So, and then and then in my adult life, that kind of turned into a lot of home improvement stuff. And so for probably a good decade, I bought a house, and it was like a 70 split level, which is the house I live in right now. And it's like, I did some conversions in the kitchen and redid the bathroom and, redid all the windows and built a really nice built-in fireplace and all that kind of stuff. So, so really all my life I've just been making stuff,
Yeah. I've been kind of the same, because I took there wasn't a whole lot of shop classes when I was in high school. There was like a construction class and automotive stuff like that. But I usually just, because I explained last episode, is like I'm a jeweler. I work on jewelry every day. And when I was in high school, there was a jewelry class that I took 14 times.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Because like I had a guidance counselor, or it wasn't really all that great. So I started going to her boss, and she just let me, it's like, I like this class. She's like, okay. So when I got my schedule for the next semester, like first 3 hours of the day, jewelry class.
Yeah.
And that was literally like the majority of my high school, like, cause when words again, because when I graduated high school, you had to have 48 credits.
Yeah,
a quarter of that was in jewelry. Yeah,
nice. Very nice.
Even then, it's like, because I took some business classes, because I was running a music store when I was in high school. So I was like, I'm kind of already doing this. So I was like, told teachers, like, because he was a CAD teacher too. It was like, because he knew I was running a business more or less for this guy I was working for. He's like, just okay. I was like, I got this project I want to finish. Can I just go back to jewelry class and I'll just do the work when I get home? He's like, okay. Then I ended up sculpting some stuff out of him out of wax for one of his classes to use that as a model for them to learn how to 3D model and print it out. So that kind of worked out in my favor. But it was because I took a more or less a shop class where I built a house in high school.
Yeah.
And like that's something that you think that's not going to stick with you, but then it sticks with you because here in my house, I've got 2 garages, which my attached garage is where my shop is in right now. Then I have a garage out back that I need to relay some concrete, re-insulate, redo some ceiling joists, redo the loft, drywall it all up. And that's stuff that I've done in the past that I haven't done really in a long time, but I still know how to do it all.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of stuff is that way too. It's like because of the environment I grew up in, it's like I know how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But most importantly, I know the stuff I don't want to do.
Oh yeah.
And one of those is drywall.
Drywall and roofing, because
yeah.
before I became a full-time jeweler, I was doing roofing with the same guy I ran a music store for. And I don't know if any of you have ever done roofing, but the packs of roofing stuff, shingles. There you go.
Yeah.
Those things,
shingles.
yeah. One pack of those weighs like 80 pounds, I think, and it's like, and you have to walk up like a 20-foot ladder sometimes with that, or 1 or 2 on your shoulders, and it's like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, that's when delivery and conveyor belts are your friend, right?
Yeah. We didn't have those.
I know the pain. I worked when I was in college. I worked for a school district on their like summer crew, and I was for one whole summer I was assigned to the roofing crew. Oh. So yeah, we spent all summer repairing roofs on. The district has like 50 something school buildings, so we spent all summer repairing roofs on school buildings. So I quickly, too? A lot of torch down stuff mostly. Yeah, I quickly learned that, I did not want to be a roofer for, like, my full-time occupation.
No, it's a horrible job. It's a horrible, horrible thing that needs to be done.
Probably the only thing worse than that I hated more was the year I graduated from high school, that summer, I worked at a lumber mill. And that was I quickly learned I did not want to work at a lumber mill for my for 25 years. So.
Oh, no, yeah.
So sometimes knowing what you don't want to do is just as important as knowing what you do want to do. So yeah.
So like you've been making, more or less been a part of making and learning how to make stuff, learning how to do stuff since you were a kid. So how did all that translate to making props and costumes?
So probably about 7 years ago, I think now, 6 or 7 years ago. So at that time, my daughters were, I have 2 daughters, and they're 3 years apart. And so about 7 years ago, they were still, I think my oldest was like just middle school age. And so my youngest was like just at the end of like elementary school. And my oldest daughter, Caitlin, and we went to Emerald City Comic-Con because I had some friends for years that were like, hey, you need to come to the Comic-Con. And I always just kind of put it off because I was like, I don't know if it really is my thing or whatever, And so this one year, my friend Sean finally talked me into it. I was like, okay, fine, buy me some tickets and we'll go. And we went and we had a blast, right? And this is when Emerald City was still pretty small. It only took up like half. Seattle the Washington State Convention Center is pretty large, and it only took up, at that time, Emerald City only took up like half of the conference center. And I had a blast, and it was easy to get around, but the thing that really stood out to both of us, was the costuming, the cosplayers, and that's when I first had that thing of like, oh, this is a thing. Always enjoyed Halloween, thought that was cool, always liked doing costumes and stuff for Halloween and stuff, and I quickly realized it was like, well, people do it beyond Halloween. There's like, these conventions are like a thing that you can do and go. And so, but I wasn't really that interested in it myself, but my daughter Caitlin was like, hey Dad, can we come next year and maybe do a costume? And I was like, yeah, why not? That would be great,
Yeah.
So then the next year, she actually got my mother-in-law involved, who's an amazing seamstress, and they did some really cool Dalek dresses from Doctor Who, and and
Yeah.
because of their age, because they were younger, and at that time there wasn't a ton of kids doing costuming, they that next year it was just like they were just like this huge hit, right? It was overwhelming. It was to the point where it was overwhelming, but it was also like this amazing experience at the same
Yeah.
time.
It's a
And
good confidence booster for a kid too.
yeah, it really is. Yeah, and especially my oldest, because she's always been more of an introvert, and so the whole thing of being out there and have people taking your pictures, and it was even kind of weird for us at first as parents, because we're like, I don't know if I want like random strangers taking pictures of my kids and stuff like that,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, but we
Yeah,
got
I
well, we
understand
really
that.
got more comfortable with it and realized that it was just more like, hey, people are excited to see something that they identify with.
Yeah.
They ended up like in the local paper and some other things, and it was just like this really awesome positive experience, and so from that point forward they were kind of hooked. And so the next 2 years, I guess it was, we just did costumes for them. And I got more and more involved, whereas like the first costume was my mother-in-law. It was almost all sewing work, right? I made like their little Dalek headband thingies, and converted a paint roller into a Dalek, you know,
The
uh,
laser beam,
laser ray,
the laser
and
arm.
that's really all I had to do. But then like every year beyond that, I became more and more involved, and then it turned into like, doing more straight up props. And then kind of like the final, where it finally started to solidify for me, was um, again, Caitlin wanted to do King Loki from the Avengers, and that was like, okay, this is like legit armor kind of stuff. I kind of need to research this and figure it out. And I didn't really research it that hard. I just kind of ran across a couple of tutorials about Warbler, and I was like, yeah, that, I'll give this a shot. Why not?
Yeah.
So
I gotta
so
try Warble at some point.
yeah. So I didn't even know foam was a thing at that time or anything, because I didn't really research it that hard. It's just I wanted to find something that would work, and I ran across a couple Warbler tutorials, and I was like, okay, yeah, this should work. And and so I did that costume, and pretty much from that point forward, that costume was kind of the thing that sort of like, I guess, showed off my skills the best. And it was the reaction to that costume was absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah, I think I've seen that picture on
Yeah,
your Instagram.
yeah, and it's been shared around the internet a bunch, and
Yeah.
I mean it's in Kamui has like a compilation book that she sells, and
Hmm.
it's actually in the back pages of there of some other cosplayers and stuff that
Nice.
showing off other Warbler work and stuff, and really because of that costume I made all these connections with people, and just it sort of solidified my place in the community a little bit, and and it was amazing, and it turned out really really well. And shout out to my mother-in-law, because again she did all the fabric work on it, so like that costume is 100%, other than the boots, is 100% handmade.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah, it's good to know somebody who actually is really good at doing seamstress
yeah,
stuff.
I would say she's our secret weapon, so
Because that's one thing I gotta get better at, is doing that. Because one of my Fallout costumes I gotta do a make a whole duster.
yeah.
For my NC.
Oh yeah.
The
Yeah.
veteran ranger, because I made a helmet. I've got working on the second version. I bought a really cheap Halloween duster that I spray painted, dirtied up, added stuff to it. I was like, man,
Yeah.
I kind of need to make my own.
Yeah,
I need
and
to get better.
someday I keep threatening that someday I'll like actually sit down and like try to like do just a fabric costume just to see if I can do it, but
Yeah.
but today is not that day.
Just talk to Kamui. She'll walk you through it.
Yeah, her books are amazing. So yeah, and from that point forward, not only did my work start to get recognized, kind of, I just had a lot of people start asking me. It's like, hey, saw this piece. Do you build other stuff? What are have you ever considered like commissions and building stuff for other people? And I at that time I really hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't thought about there being other people that would want me to make stuff for them and things. And so I just kind of slowly was like, yeah, I think I'll kind of dip my toe in the water and see where that leads. And so almost 4 years later, I'm where I am. Started out with just smaller commissions and stuff, and now I'm actually to the point where I can't grow anymore as far as like a builder with having a full-time job at the same time.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in this weird space where I I really just turned down almost everything. Um, and that includes, and because when I first started setting out as like a commission builder, I was looking at what the stuff like Bill and Harrison were doing. And it's like, my site was kind of like, I want to start getting like those corporate commissions. I want companies to pay. One, they pay better. And two, it's kind of like, I kind of felt like it sort of validated my work if, like these professional people were willing to pay me to build stuff for them, you know? And I'm not saying you're not a professional if you don't do corporate commissions, but in my mind, that was kind of like, that was like the level I wanted to attain, you know? And I'm at that point now, but I've had in this past year, I've probably had 6 or 7 different corporations come to me and say, hey, we want you to build this thing for us. And I have to turn them down because I can't do it.
Yeah.
because it's usually a time thing.
Yeah.
It's usually they need it now, within 3 weeks, 3 weeks to a month. And it's like, if it was my full-time job, I could probably do it, but it's not my full-time job. And the problem is things don't pay enough for me to quit my full-time job to take care of a family of 4 and pay for my mortgage and all that, to turn it into a full-time job. So I'm kind of in this weird place right now where I love the stuff that I've been doing, and I got to my goal, but my goal is not attainable. And so it's kind of like, I'm in this space where I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do next.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck in a way. And so I haven't taken on any commissions for the last half of the year. And I actually have a blank slate. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I think I'm going to do kind of like what I did with the Wonder Woman sword, which was just something I wanted to build for myself. And if it turned out I was going to sell copies of it. And I'll probably just pick something else next that I do for myself. It's not a paid commission. And if it turns into something I can sell as a kit, I may do that. I may not, because kits by themselves are a total pain too. Cause all I've done for the past 6 months is make Wonder Woman swords, and and to me, and don't get me wrong, because I'm very, very thankful for the people that have been buying them. And it's so awesome to like help that whole Wonder Woman fan base, because, I love the cosplay community. I love being a part of all that. But at the same time, it's like, I just don't want to make kits for the rest of my, however long I want to do this kind of stuff. So
Just pick something for yourself that you want. And if it turns out great, because you'll probably make a mold anyways.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And it's like,
so that's,
do a small limited run. Don't do like 60, just do like 10 or 12 and just make yourself a couple $100.
Yeah, and that's probably what I'll end up doing until I can get to a point where I can figure out what what my end goal is. So I'm kind of a lost prop maker right now, because the jobs keep coming to me, but I can't take them, and it's just like, and it's killing me. So fortunately, I know a lot of really great people, and so I can refer those to other people, so that other people in the community, and a lot of my friends that do this full time, get those big jobs, so they can add to their full time work and actually make the money they need to exist. Because for me, I don't have to have the big contracts because I have a full time job. So
yeah, same here. Because like I work 40 plus hours a week, and usually when I get a commission, because I'll do a commission if it's like somebody here in town, like this movie commission I've got that's open. When he gets back around to making his movie, I'll start making the stuff for his movie again. But if somebody like out of state or out of town that I really don't know is like, hey, can you make this for me? How much would it be? Here's my budget. And it's like, I'm not currently taking commissions. Sorry. But here's a tutorial on what you're looking for. Why don't you go try and make it yourself? Because you have a lot more fun than have somebody doing it for you. Because last night I was at a Halloween party, which I just finished my Adam's cat costume.
Oh, yeah, that turned out great, by the way.
Yeah, I'm kind of not happy with it, because this is like it's one of those this is good enough things.
Yeah, it looks good though.
Yeah, it's EVA foam, plastic dip, a little bit of paint. But I had a friend last night. He's like, he wants a nuke from Fallout, like a mini nuke. Yeah. But like a really big one.
Oh yeah.
So he's like, how much do you think that would cost? And I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, well, you could pay me a couple $100, $2 to $3 to make it for you, at a guess, because
Yeah.
that's not factoring in like labor or
Yeah,
parts. Because like
exactly.
because saying like, okay, we can go get some. It's like, or you can do it with me. You can buy all the parts. You can come hang out. We'll make something. It's like you can get some EPS foam board. We'll sculpt it out of that. We'll go get some Epsilon. We'll coat it in that. Then we'll lay in some fiberglass, harden up, or coat it again so it's good and durable, so you don't break it. Then you can paint it. It's under $100 in parts, and you're not paying me any more than you'd want to, because I'm not necessarily worried about making money making props, because I got a full-time job.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd have more fun showing somebody how to, or working with somebody making something here in town than it's like, oh crap, well my next 3 weeks of my life is work in this thing that I probably really don't want to make.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. Yeah, and that's another thing for me too, is like I'm also at the point where, or got to the point where, you know, when I first started doing commissions, it's kind of like if the project even at least intrigued me, then I would take it, because I just wanted to get my work out there and wanted it to get seen and things. And most of the time people, you know, if it's like individual commissions, they'll have this commission, and even if they're willing to pay what I charge for it, which is not cheap, I'm not cheap.
No,
I'll just say that straight up front. I think a lot of makers in our community completely undervalue themselves and their time.
Yeah.
And if you can do the work to justify the cost, then don't undersell yourself.
Yeah.
You know, but even if the money's really great and they're willing to pay thousands of dollars for whatever, a lot of times I'll just be like, no, I don't want to do it, because it's just not even something that interests me. You know, so it really has to be something that for it has to interest me in one way or the other. Either I'm already a fan of the whatever, or it would utilize some type of technique or some type of build process that I haven't done before, and it's going to push me to build something in a way that I haven't done before, so I can like increase the tools in my skill set, you know. And those are like the two things that kind of push, you know, when I was still doing a lot more commissions, those were the things that really kind of pushed what I decided on projects to begin with. So
yeah, speaking of that, because the few commissions that I've taken, I can luckily say that I've broken even or made just a little bit of money. But because usually now it's like, I don't have a whole lot of time to sit here in the shop. But when I do, it's got to intrigue me, because when Bill from Prentice Props, when his channel hit 100,000 subscribers, he did his Firefly pistol.
Yeah,
build,
which
we were both in that video.
Yep.
And like I made mine out of MDF, and I carved handles out of some mahogany. And like, it was like a traditional style of making that I never really thought about using, because MDF is medium density fiberboard. It's very poisonous if you're not in a well ventilated area or have a vacuum running. But I was sitting there making that thing, and I was like, this is turning out really good. And I finished it. Like I said, when I made the handles out of mahogany, I cut them out of some mahogany that I had, and I hand filed and sanded the grips to shape to that piece, and I have a removable mag and movable parts on the gun besides the trigger. But as I sit there thinking like, as when I posted that onto my page when I finished it, because like I had a couple people was like, man, I want one of those.
Yeah.
It was like, well, like I'm not gonna make a mold of this thing because it didn't quite turn out the way I wanted it to. But if I wanted to, I can go back and remake that and make it like just into a small kit. I can like do a batch of like, say 10 to 20 like just kit parts, or 10 cold cast finished pieces. But it's another thing is like, I'm not gonna want to sit there and hand carve 60 mahogany grips for this thing. That's not gonna happen.
Yep. Yeah, doing the assembly line thing, it gets old really fast. I'm sure there's some people out there that, you know, they love it. It's like I'll carve one really good set where the wood grain is still visible, and I'll mold that. Then I'll just do some tinted resin. Do some fake it with paint, you know, or something. Yeah, right.
Yeah, fake it with paint.
Yeah,
which I've done.
Because I've done several kits over the years. Not a ton, but it basically, if I'm doing one, it's because I want to I need to like raise some money to do something else that I want to do. So So usually that's the reason why I do that kind of stuff. It's like it's really more like, hey, I want to make this for myself, but I can turn it into a kit. I can make some extra money off of it, and then that will pay for, usually it's to like travel to go to another con or something like that. So it's kind of like this self-perpetuating thing. So it just generally will kind of pay for itself.
Yeah.
But being a kit maker has never really been something. It's like, hey, I'm gonna make all these kits. It's just like, nope. I do it because it's a necessary thing to raise funds, but really, pretty much for me, once I've built something once, I never want to make it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm kind of that way. The majority of the stuff that I've made, foam wise, like, because I've made stuff from Skyrim and Fallout. I recently, well, not recently, in the past year, I made a Mechanist Helmet, and out of foam. I had a friend of mine send me some files. Then I had the Nintendo 3D printed and modeled by my friend. Finished those up, and I made patterns off of the helmet that I made, so I can go get some TNT cosplay foam and make a better one. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah,
it's like it's sitting on my shelf in my office. It's like maybe one day later.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for me, like revisiting things is like it's just like I don't know, nails on a chalkboard. I just don't want to hear it. It just doesn't intrigue me. And I have people all the time. They're like, hey, it's probably the one I get the most is because I did 2 swords on private commissions for Fire Emblem, the Sword of Seals and Omega Yado. Where Fire Emblem has like these really crazy, just ornate like stuff, and I'm really proud of those swords. They turned out really well, and I get so many people, hey, can you make me one of these? Can you make one of these? I'm like, nope, never making it again. I enjoy, because for me, it's like a lot of times, it's really the challenge of the build, right? It's like I look at this thing, it kind of goes back to that Batman helicopter thing. It's like, how do I make this thing work? How do I assemble this thing? What techniques and tools can I use to create this thing in the real world? And for me, it's kind of like that. Not only can I realize it, but I have to build it in my head first. I'm not like a really big planner guy. I might do like a basic like outline blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Some people sit down and like write down like everything they need to do. And I'm not. I'm more organic. I'm just like, I will literally, if I'm taking on a project, whatever the project is, I will literally build it in my head like 3 times at least, right? I'm just a visual person that way, and so my plan for me is just in my head, and I will do like a blueprint to get sizing and stuff, but other than that, I don't list out everything else. It's just like, it's an organic process for me. Yeah. And that challenge of the build is what really kind of fuels my fire as a maker at this point, especially with prop work and costuming work. And so revisiting that, for me it's boring because I already solved the problem.
Yeah, usually if I got it something, because every once in a while I have some free time, I'll come in. If my shop is clean, which is rare,
yeah,
I'll come in, I'll just pick up some foam, and I'll just like, okay, I'm just gonna mock out a helmet, just go to town and mock, just go grab some foam and just go to town, and I'll pop out something like I made a knight or like a medieval knight helmet recently out of some thin EVA foam I had, and painted it up, and I was like, no, that's okay. I was like, it needs something else, so let me like just paint my hand red and just smack it in the face. And it's on my Instagram. It's like a bronze gold colored medieval style helmet with a giant red handprint on the face of the helmet.
I don't remember if I remember seeing that or not. So.
It's somewhere.
I'll have to check it out.
It's somewhere down there. But yeah, it's time wise, being a parent and having a full-time job, it's finding time in the shop is one of the challenges, because you got to find that happy medium for everything. Which is because with my son's 2 right now, so when he gets older to where he can become more interested in like doing things, because that's what I'm really looking forward to is when he grows up a little bit, when he's probably about like around 5 to 7. It's like when Halloween comes around.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I was gonna make him some Warcraft armor for Halloween. Just a
Oh,
little,
cool.
because he's a small little kid, and it would be hilarious to see him walk around with some giant pauldrons and a guild tabard.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
But then like my wife says, like we're gonna dress him up as an old person because our friend has a daughter and that's what they're doing. So they're gonna do
Oh, really?
old people babies.
There's no armor in that though.
No.
Well, that's like so my family, a couple years ago, one of the group cosplay, or actually the first group cosplay that we ever did is with my wife and my two daughters, was Fury Road characters from Fury Road. So, and since there's more guys or girls than guys in my family, we gender bent everybody. So
Yeah, I saw that.
I was Furiosa. My wife was Maxine. My daughter was Immortan Joan, and my youngest daughter was Immortan Joan, and my oldest daughter was Nux. And really that all came about because we thought it would be hilarious for Emily, my youngest daughter, to be Immortan Joe because she's only 5 foot tall. She's just tiny. And we were just like, and that was literally, I mean, the whole reason behind it was like, we absolutely love that movie, right? I think my daughters actually saw that movie in the theater 8 times. So they were just like floored by that movie, and pun intended. And and so yeah, I mean, so sometimes the inspiration for cosplay can just be something as simple as that. Wouldn't it be hilarious if she was Immortan Joe? I mean, that's all it was, and then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, it was a good Immortal Joe costume.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I saw that as like, that's awesome. Then I saw your whole group family. It's like, that's just great.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that one. So we've been trying to revisit it because we actually have only ever had it at a con one time. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it's kind of become like this cursed thing for us. So it didn't work out. We were just at Rose City Comic Con in Portland like last month, and we were going to do it on Sunday, and it wasn't working out. No, we just had multiple problems about it. So
yeah.
If you want to learn more about that, listen to the last episode of Craftingeek. I talked about it there, but
crying children and
so someday we'll get that figured out. What I really need to do is like plan a day with a photographer and do like an actual photo shoot with it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where I kind of feel lacking with it. I spent a couple months building stuff for that, and then it was only seen once, and I kind of feel like it needs to be like recorded more or something, on in photos or something. So
if there's ever a reason to get in costume, just go do a photo shoot.
Yeah. In fact, it's one of the only costumes I have like that's kind of set up in my shop or in my workspace area. So
yeah, I've got the few costumes that I have done, because like I said, I don't get a whole lot of time. I've done the one that I keep revisiting is my NCR Veteran Ranger armor from Fallout New Vegas. Yeah. I have a duster that I bought, and I hemmed and made it fit me, then painted that stuff, and I made some foam chest piece armor. Then I made like a leather holster for a revolver, and I got some old Radder pants and old Radder boots, and I made a helmet. And my first version of it wasn't that great. I just basic coat and foam armor in the helmet that I made. But in the second version, I added leather to the armor. I dirtied up the jacket a little bit more, and I made it look just a little bit better. Made some gauntlets for it and stuff like that. But because I was talking with Bjorn, my third and final version of the costume itself is all leather. It's leather armor, leather bracers, a better duster. I'm making a backpack to go with it out of leather that's going to have a ventilation system in it, or like basically like a mascot fan on the side that will run up through the helmet so it'll circulate air better. And I'm making a new helmet for it, which I'll probably end up making again because this one's not working out well. I'm probably just going to finish it, put it on the shelf, and make another one. Then
nothing wrong with that. In fact, I find that it's interesting talking about, like revisiting costumes, because even though I don't particularly want to make the same prop over and over again, I actually enjoy revisiting costumes a little bit. Yeah. And like that kind of iterative process of like adding to your costume and creating it, it's like continuing to further the detailing or whatever it is. Because I've found that when I've done that, I've actually enjoyed the costume more than when I like originally made it.
Yeah, because the more you learn as you go, the better you can make the original thing.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of did that with I did a gender bent Sergeant Calhoun from Wreck-It Ralph. It's like still like the only full armored costume I've ever done, full body armor. And I always really liked it, and it did well at cons as far as like reaction to it and stuff. Although most people would assume I was from Mass Effect, you know.
Sure, you weren't wearing Bill's armor.
Even with, oh, you know what? Speaking of that, I want to be like number 25 or whatever, but I'm too big. I can't. It won't fit me. So
it was crazy how many people worn that costume.
Yeah,
I'm surprised it's still intact.
And so the whole thing with the gender bent Sergeant Calhoun, right, was my wife was a gender bent Felix, and so she was Fix-It Felicia. And again, it was just one of those things that started as like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if you were Fix-It Felicia and I was Calhoun, you know? And because I wanted to build the armor, I hadn't really seen it done that often.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to pick projects that maybe, at least for myself, that people haven't done a lot. But even with a gender bent, obvious Fix-It Felicia standing next to me, people would still look at me and go, "Are you from Mass Effect?"
Yeah, I'm kind of.
And her armor, literally on one of the pauldrons, says Calhoun on it. So it's like, not very observant, are you? No. I like to kid about that. Yeah. But that was one of those where I always liked it from the beginning, but I kind of wanted to refresh it because I hadn't had time to make a new set of armor or anything, and I was going to do packs again with it and stuff, and ended up just going, hey, what can I do to this? And I had never really seen anybody make her helmet because it's only seen in the movie for like maybe 30 seconds or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built her helmet to go with it. And then I decided, if they're out killing cybugs all day, maybe there's cybug goo all over everything, And so I just like came up with a way to make it all, splattered with blood basically, but it's green, right?
Yeah.
And that was a huge hit as far as people like, hey, really appreciating kind of the time I took to kind of up the costume a little more and stuff. And so
maybe you should just make a little thing that hangs off the back that's a little like a banner above your head. It says, "I am Calhoun." Not from Mass Effect.
So I always tell people too, it's like if they think it's from Mass Effect, that's okay, because even the designers of the movie said that they basically ripped off Mass Effect for the the Fate game Heroes Duty. So it was definitely a thing, It wasn't like it was just like a random thing to compare it to. It was like they're basically like, yeah, we just copied Mass Effect because we really like their armor a lot. So
yeah, when it comes to big armor builds, I've got a few on the list of builds that I want to do, but I'm at that point where like I'm still like going to cons. I haven't gone to any lately for work because I've been busy at work or life and stuff. But when I do get a chance, I want to go in easy walk around costumes. Cause like
I hear you totally.
Yeah, because my Adam's cat patch that I made, I just duct taped it onto a leather jacket last night because I went to a Halloween party last night.
Yeah,
I took
slapped on there and
I got the Pit Boy that I repainted. I wore that and it was like slapped on a holster on the side and took that gun. It was like, oh, there you go, costume, easy walking around, easily repeatable. Except when I took this patch off last night when I got back, and it kind of took some of the color out of the black on the back.
Oh yeah.
So I got to go in with some of my stain and fix those little things.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I got to get one of the actual real patches to sew on there.
I hear you about the comfort thing. That's like, the most recent costume that I did was Lando Skiff Guard from Return of the Jedi. And mostly because my daughter, again, it's like everything always with costuming, it always kind of comes from my kids. And my youngest daughter, Emily, who is also a Morton Joan, she wanted to do Leia, the bounty hunter Bouche, or Bausch. I say Bouche. People can correct me if they want. That costume, and it was like always a favorite of mine. So the instant actually not the instant, because she actually told me like 4 years ago she wanted to do that costume, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that costume. Like, I'm not building that helmet. I'm not doing all that, because I knew what it was going to take, And then finally over the years, as I built skills and stuff, it's like she was like, I really we were talking about what we're going to do for Emerald City this last year or whatever. And she's like, I'd really like to do Boosh. And like, okay, I'm ready to take it on, So I did Lando to kind of go with her Boosh, because I've always liked those characters in that movie. And mostly those two characters are really about the helmets. And it's like, okay, I want to build these helmet kind of thing. But the side effect of that is, it's a pretty open helmet, and really there's not much to his costume, because a lot of Star Wars costumes are kind of plain in a way. He has like a chest piece that I built out of foam and some shoulder guards, but for the most part, it's a really comfortable costume.
Yeah, because if you're not a Mandalorian or Darth Vader, or Star Wars costumes are relatively easy.
It's like kind of loose-fitting clothes and then a couple pieces of armor. And other than the heat of the helmet, which isn't terrible because it's an open-faced helmet, I mean, it has a mouth guard, but it's not like a visor covered or anything. Yeah. And it's definitely probably, and not that I've done a ton of costumes because I really haven't for myself. It's definitely one of my most comfortable costumes, maybe the most comfortable costume. And the more I walk around at a con and stuff in a comfortable costume, it's like, I don't know if I really need to build any more armor for myself.
Yeah, because
especially knowing the time involved, because it really is about time when it comes down to it. It's like, I could spend hundreds of hours doing this, or I could do all these other things, So
before we recorded the podcast, or before we started this, I had to go pick up my son from my sister's because she watched him for us last night. And when I went and pick him up, he was running around with my niece's Darth Vader lightsaber.
Yeah.
Just smacking on stuff, making noises. Like, oh, son.
You're like, yes.
Because I had bought him.
Feel the power of the Force.
Which is cool because I've got the Luke Skywalker Rey lightsaber that lights up. Yeah. And because I bought him like a little cheap toy lightsaber that lights up, makes noise. One time when we were at Walmart, and he did not like that.
Really?
At all. That's like he's like, he saw it as like, ooh, toy, but when he hit the button, it turned on. It scared him.
Oh, did it freak him out?
Little, yeah, but it's like it's better for him now. But he's like,
was not prepared for that.
No, and he played with it off and on for a little bit. Then he started chewing it up, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this now. You're not going to miss it, and I'm going to take the guts and put it into a lightsaber that I'm going to build.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. Sometimes that kind of reminds me a little bit when my kids were finally about the age where it's like, okay, I think they're old enough to, because Star Wars, the original trilogy, it isn't like overly crazy as far as violence and stuff goes, but in the eyes of a young kid, it could still be pretty scary or whatever. And so when they finally got to the age where I was like, okay, I think we're ready to have them watch this, which I don't remember how old they were, and we watched the original Star Wars, now known as A New Hope, and they were kind of like, and I was just like devastated. Yeah, I was like, no. You don't understand.
I'll be glad when
like, you must love this thing because it's been such a huge part of my life,
Yeah.
It's all right, but they had so many other movies. I mean, like they had seen The Incredibles and some other things like that, and it's just like it was a little bit, kind of like as a parent, one of those like that kind of dagger to the heart just a little bit,
I'll just be glad when we get to the point where I don't have to watch any more kid movies like Moana or Pets or stuff like that, because
although there are some of those great movies,
there are good movies, but when you've seen them 100 times,
some real
it's like, okay, when you're old enough, we'll watch, because there'll obviously be more Star Wars movies by the time he's old enough to watch Star Wars.
True. Yeah.
It's like, okay, but if he gets interested, it's like, we're just gonna sit down one afternoon, we're just gonna grind all these movies out, and just fill your brain with sci-fi.
And to not bring up Blade Runner again, but I'm going to bring up Blade Runner again. I do have to add that one of kind of like the opposite moments of those was when my daughters were finally. Well, actually, I had my oldest watch it first because she's 3 years older. Because Blade Runner is a pretty heady movie, and it's fairly graphic, and it's an R-rated film for a reason. But when my oldest was finally of the age that, I was like, okay, she's ready to handle this, and it to this day, it's her all-time favorite movie.
That's awesome.
And so when she got that, I was like, yes.
She understands.
Because like I said, it's always been in my top 5, and I don't know if I could handle it. She'd be like, yeah, it's all right, but whatever. It kind of sucks. It's too slow or whatever,
Yeah.
But she's like, I think at this point, well, I can't say she's seen it more than me, but she definitely watches it more than me. And it's one of those like, when she's talking to like her friends or whatever, and it's like, oh, you haven't seen it? You have to come to my house and watch it, Because I have a pretty decent home theater room with a projector and like a 110-inch screen and all custom audio stuff. Because one of the things I did for probably about 7 or 8 years in the early 90s was I built speaker cabinets for like the high-end home theater market kind of thing,
Yeah.
So all of like my whole sound system is all custom built and everything. So I have a really great place to watch good movie kind of thing. And so so when that became loved by her, I was like, okay, yeah, I can forgive the Star Wars thing. Although I will say, several years later, we revisited the whole trilogy, and then they were more into it. And they're not like super Star Wars heads, but I think my youngest, who did the Boosh cosplay, she's definitely more connected to Star Wars stuff than my oldest.
I'm actually really anticipating the next movie that's coming out in December. Then we're gonna go see that in theaters when it comes out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I actually watched the trailer. I broke down. I've been on this like kick of not watching trailers for several years because I just think they're too dang long. And
yeah, sometimes you figure out the movie when you watch the trailer.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to know. It's like it's maybe not a spoiler thing, but I don't necessarily want to know sequence of events, and because I'm such a visual person, I remember everything I see, kind of thing. And when I'm watching a movie, it's like, okay, I recognize this color palette, therefore this next thing is going to happen that I already saw in the trailer, and I would prefer to avoid that.
Yeah.
But I will say the trailer they just released like this week. Was it within a week?
It was I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, I was impressed with the way it's cut because I don't feel like it gives away any of the plot. I feel like it gives you a tease of what it's going to look like and feel like, without being overly. It's what it should be. It kind of teases you and makes you want to see more.
Yeah.
So
I like watching trailers. I'm not real big. Because if a movie gets spoiled for me, I unless it's something that I absolutely need to see, like Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I don't really care about watching trailers or listening to theories or podcasts or something because it's I'll go see it and I'll still enjoy it even if I know how it's gonna. Because if I know how a movie's gonna end, there's still all the in between.
That's true. That's true.
But
and I think it really depends on the movie and the story too. Like especially if it's like a Sixth Sense kind of thing where the whole movie turns on a reveal. To have that spoiled for you, okay, I can see how that would change the experience of that movie. By the way, it's been spoiled for both my kids, so they can't ever watch that movie fresh, which it's a, decade, if not older movie. So I guess, whatever.
They'll forget about it and one day they'll see it and they're like, oh my God, this is great.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, because when it comes to movies and trailers, if there was a trailer that was so blatantly obvious they played the whole movie and the short little trailer was Shutter Island. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I was like, well, I figured that movie out. And
well, and sometimes it's like I feel like the movies that give away the most stuff are movies that they're not that excited about anyway. And so they're trying to give you as much as they can to want to go see it. And I just usually say, oh, thank you for saving me the $15 or whatever.
Yeah. Now it's like 20.
I just saw the $25 or whatever. Yeah. I just saved $25 watching the 3-minute version of this movie. So.
Yeah. We've been going for about an hour, 30 minutes. So I think we've covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah,
talked a lot about movies. I don't know if I talked much about myself as far as being a maker. But
you covered the basics.
The basics.
It's if you really want to know more about Eric, just go watch Craftingeek.
Yeah, actually, in fact, like our first episode is titled Origins. So
yeah, I've
Jackie and I kind of go into, and some of it I covered here, and some of it's a little different too. So.
Yeah, it's really whatever. It's however it progresses. I'm not real like sticklers. Like I need to stick to the plan.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Really.
Yeah, we got a good 20 minutes in there. In between movie. And,
it was the same with Bjorn. We got about a good half hour of him in there before we started jabbering on about other stuff. But it's whatever. Let's like I get somebody that's like I know if when I get a chance to talk to Ted. Because I listened to your guys' episode with Ted, and probably the majority of that whole cast will be Ted explaining his story. So.
Well, and Ted, it's so fun to talk to Ted too, because
Ted's he's such a cool guy.
Well, he is, and we've spent quite a bit of time together in person and stuff, and it's really hard not to just like, it's like I want to talk to him about everything he's ever worked on, because he's worked on a lot of things, especially movies from the 90s that are things that like favorite films of mine and stuff, and I was like, I just want to pick his brain about every little thing that he knows.
Yeah, because I learned because one night when I was streaming, he popped on my stream, and somewhere or another it got onto the topic of him working on movies, and I went and checked out his list of movies he worked on his website.
Yeah, on his website.
I just had a bug fly in my mouth. Sorry.
Oh, protein.
Yeah, not the good kind. So I went and saw his list. I was like, he worked on Guyver, because I loved those movies. Like the
he was one of the suit performers on the.
I know. And I was like holy crap! I was like, Ted, Guyver, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm when I get a chance to talk to him, I'd probably end up geeking out worse than I would with anybody else, unless I talk to Adam Savage if I'm that lucky. But being a costume prop maker, being a maker, since you're more on the lines of making props and costumes, what kind of advice would you give the beginner to what would be a good way for them to start if they want to do something like you do?
So I kind of tell people the same thing most of the time, which is, and I get a lot of people ask me this question. Like I'll get a ton of people just like Facebook message me or whatever. Hey, I want to do this. And I notice like a real hesitancy in people because they don't want to make mistakes, or they don't want their thing to turn out crappy because they think it's going to turn out crappy because they've never built anything before, or whatever that mental block is that kind of keeps you from trying. And
I think everybody has that at some point.
Well, we do. We all do. I feel the same way about many things. There's several things that, it's like in my head I'd like to build, but I've never tried it because it could be a failure, and I have 30 plus years of skills behind me, the biggest thing is don't psych yourself out and spend all your time just thinking about it. You can't ever progress if you don't ever build anything. And just about every maker I know will tell you that they've probably learned more from the things they failed than the things that have been successes for them. So that just taking that leap and diving in and just kind of putting that fear away is the hardest thing for all of us as creative people, because when you're creative, it comes out of you and it's like a part of you, and you want to avoid that criticism, whatever it might be, but don't let what other people are doing hold you back, and just go for it and buy the basic things. If you want to build something out of foam, get a pattern from Evil Ted's website that costs like $5. Buy some floor mats, get a razor knife and some glue, and your investment's maybe $20, and figure out how to put things together.
Yeah.
Again. And the thing is just take that leap. Don't hide behind planning. Just take that leap is what I like to tell people.
Yeah, a good resource that I've told people in the past is check out Pepakura.
Yeah, Pepakura is a great way to start.
Yeah, because you can translate like that into foam too, which is a good thing. Which I've done before. Which actually the majority of stuff that I made out of foam is Pepakura patterns.
Yeah, and that goes along the lines of don't be afraid to try other things, because it seems like with all the makers that I know, we all kind of have the thing, our go-to thing, you know. Um, some people their go-to thing is foam. Some people their go-to thing is Warbler. Some people their go-to thing is sculpting out of clay. Some people their go-to thing is wood, Sintra, you name it, and we all can kind of use those things to a degree, but there's always going to be something that works for you really well, and you can't really learn what that is unless you try all that stuff, you know. So does that make sense?
Yeah, well, yeah, it makes sense to me. But...
Yeah. and just and I guess what I'm getting at is, like, if you try something to foam and it's a complete total failure,
try again.
Maybe try again, and if it is again, maybe foam isn't your thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you can make things out of Warbler better, to your, and by better I mean to what you see in your head, because we all kind of are fighting against that thing, right? It's like, I see this thing in my head, I know what I want to make. Can I make my hands do this thing?
Yeah.
Because like for me, over the 5 or 6 years I've been doing specifically prop work, it's like I don't make everything out of one thing. I know it's like there's certain pieces. This is best out of foam. This is best out of Warbler. This is best sculpted. This is best, because I know my skill set, and it's really about what your skill set is. And again, you can't create those skills. You can't learn on those skills. You can't build on those skills unless you take the chance to just create things. You know, and like one thing Ted says all the time, I don't know if you've heard him say or not, he's like, it's not just about talent. You can learn talent.
Yeah.
You really can. And it really is more about skill, and where you start with the skill and where you progress with the skill. So don't be afraid is the biggest thing. Don't be afraid. Just give it a shot. If you start with foam, you're out maybe $20 if it's a failure. So
yeah, but
when you fail, don't give up. I think a lot of people, they fail and then they just give up.
Because there's like, I'll probably at some point post this on my Instagram, because to revisit this, the Ranger helmet was more or less my entry into prop making, because I wanted one because it looked awesome.
Exactly.
So I looked up online because I had a friend who started making stuff, as I asked him. But he never got back to me, so I looked it up and I was like, okay, I saw some guy make one out of cardboard, and a Vader helmet, so I tried that. That didn't look great. So I tried again with just using a cardboard, and I got so far, I was like, no, that didn't look great.
That's okay.
But yeah, then right after that, I found Pepakura. I was like, yeah, awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, and you moved on to something that you gained a skill in, and now you can create something out of it.
Yeah.
I keep meaning to do it, but I have in my shop, I have a tube that's sitting there, and it has like 10 casts from the Wonder Woman mold that are all crap, because I was testing some different ways of pouring things and testing different reinforcements for the center of it and all these things. And I had 10 crappy pulls before I got the mold where I wanted it to be able to pull clean pulls out of it, and so I think sometimes people look at, some of builders like me and look at our work and it's like, wow, it's perfect every time. And it's like, no, it's not,
Not every time. No.
No. I mean, sometimes I get lucky and it is perfect as I can make it, or within my skill set. But like that mold, I had to tweak that mold quite a bit with channels and air hole and, air channels and stuff to get the resin to flow where it needed to flow, and to come down with a system to where I can get the pour that I need out of the mold,
Yeah.
But that took some time. And I was kind of getting along. I was getting along with the crap,
Did I just waste all this time?
This is like the 10th pull,
Yeah.
And it happened to be the 11th was the one where I finally figured it out.
It's all about learning, because when you make your mold, it turns out good. You get a good mold made, but then you got to learn how to cast out of that mold. You can't.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it was a super clean mold to begin with.
Yeah,
right?
because this Dragon Priest mask mold that I got, I let my friend borrow, the guy who geeked out over you, and I was like, It's not the greatest mother mold on there because I did it out of fiberglass because I didn't have any epoxy coat or anything, and I let him borrow it because he wanted to cast, and I didn't have any resin to cast him on. So I was like, here's the mold. You've got some resin. You're doing a big project. Have at it. And when he pulled the mold, it had a big old dent in the forehead. I was like, that mold doesn't. He's like, I think your mold's not really lined up right. I was like, no, it is. You just didn't have it put in there right.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like casting too. It's like every mold has its like little tweaks, and little things that you have to know, and until you test it.
Yeah, really you can see it's got a good little rim. On the back of it, and I can pull out a good cast out of this with a little bit of air bubbles since I don't have a evacuator or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's like when I gave him that mold to use, and when I went to go pick it up, he's like, it was all dented, and he didn't use any 65D. He used a Smoothcast 300 to do a rotocast. Yeah. It was like, that's not really going to work. But I was like, you're getting some 65D. You want to keep a hold of it? He's like, no, I'm good. I'll probably just paint this and just call it a day. And I was like, okay.
Just call it good.
Yeah. And it was like, you got to learn how your mold works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one.
It's just like, that's just like one more skill set, as far as making goes. So
it is a handy skill set to have.
It definitely can be. It's also expensive.
Yeah, because when I finally do get my definitive version made of my NCR helmet, I am going to mold that thing. I'm going to matrix mold the mask and tail piece, make a slush cast mold of the helmet, and the side pieces I'll have dump molds for those. And I'll probably get some resin and sell like 10 or 12 cast out of that, so I can at least make it feel like I accomplished something.
Yeah, and recuperate your costs a bit too.
Yeah, so. Over the past of the 5-6 years I've been making.
Yep. Been there, definitely.
Yeah. So. Well, I think we've covered a lot. We're at 151.
Wow, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll probably go back and listen to it a couple times.
So if anybody doesn't know, you can, if you want to get a hold of me or check out my work or anything, my website is coregeek.net, and you can, there's links at the bottom of my homepage to all of my social media stuff.
Yeah, we'll have we'll have all the links down in the show notes below.
Cool.
I'll get those from you.
And Craftingeek, you can find at craftingeek.com. So
yeah.
So that's me.
Yay. All right. Well, this was episode 2 of the Origin of the Maker podcast. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. If you want to hear more when we get more guests on, hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate that a lot. And if you want to be on this podcast, if you are a maker, you make whatever it is you make, if you make props and costumes like me and Eric do, or you make swords or knives or cups or blankets or whatever, if you want to come on and talk about it, I would be more glad to talk to you about it, because I'll probably want to know how it's done anyways. So message me on Facebook at Origin of a Maker on Facebook, and I will get back to you there. But thank you all for listening to this episode, and we will catch you next time.